On March 3, 1943, at 0600 hours, Rear Admiral Masatomi Kimura stands on the bridge of his flagship, gazing over the Bismarck Sea's choppy waters. 8 sleek destroyers shepherd 8 laden transports, carrying 6,900 soldiers of the 51st Division desperate reinforcements for Lae, New Guinea. For over a year, Japanese warships have ruled these seas unchallenged, their confidence forged in Pearl Harbor's flames and Java Sea's triumph. High-altitude American bombs fall harmlessly. Their anti-aircraft umbrella of steel repels all foes. Kimura believes victory is assured. But what he cannot fathom, what no samurai officer could nightmare, is the mechanical demon brewing in Australian workshops. Modified B-25 Mitchells, noses bristling with 8.50 caliber fangs, will turn this convoy into burning wreckage in mere hours. Imagine the quiet tension on those decks, whispers of invincibility, shattered by innovation born from Allied desperation. What if one lookout glimpsed the horizon's unnatural shadow? The sea is about to erupt in a tactical apocalypse that redefines Pacific warfare forever. On March 3, 1943, at 0600 hours, Rear Admiral Masatomi Kimura stands on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out over the Bismarck Sea's choppy waters. Under his command, 8 sleek destroyers form a protective ring around 8 heavily laden transport ships, all slicing through seas that Japanese naval doctrine firmly claims as imperial territory. This convoy bears the weight of desperate hopes, reinforcements for the 51st Division, 6,900 battle-hardened soldiers promised to Lieutenant General Hitoshi Imamura at Lae, New Guinea, where the jungle war rages on. Kimura has every reason to feel secure. For over a year, Japanese warships have navigated these routes unchallenged by American surface fleets, their dominance unchallenged like the rising sun itself. Yet, what Admiral Kimura cannot fathom, what no Japanese officer could conjure in their most harrowing dreams, is the mechanical metamorphosis unfolding far to the south. In dusty Australian workshops, American ingenuity has reforged medium bombers into harbingers of doom, arming them with 8.50 caliber machine guns jutting from their noses like the venomous fangs of a mythical beast. In mere hours, these modified B-25 Mitchells will transform this serene convoy into an inferno of twisted metal and shattered lives, scattering wreckage across the Bismarck Sea's unforgiving expanse. Imagine the quiet tension on those bridges, the salty air carrying whispers of invincibility, only to be shattered by an innovation born from Allied desperation and creativity. The Japanese Navy's unshakable confidence stems from a string of triumphs: the devastating surprise at Pearl Harbor, the rout at the Java Sea, and the consistent failure of high-altitude American bombers to strike moving targets with any precision. They scoff at the notion of low-flying threats, believing their destroyers' anti-aircraft batteries can repel any foolhardy assailants daring to close within range. Captain Tameichi Hara, aboard the destroyer Shirayuki, has traversed these waters between Rabaul and Lae countless times, witnessing Allied attempts fizzle B-17, flying fortresses dropping payloads from the heavens that rarely connect, torpedo runs demanding suicidal straight-line approaches, and medium-altitude bombings allowing ample time for evasive dances across the waves. To add to their assurance, cultural pride plays its part. The samurai spirit infuses their naval ethos, viewing the sea as a domain where discipline and tradition prevail over chaotic innovation. Socially, these sailors draw strength from the collective resolve of the empire, families back home pinning hopes on their safe return with tales of glory. But lurking beneath this veneer is a subtle undercurrent of war weariness, soldiers aboard the transports whispering about the grueling New Guinea campaign, where malaria and mud claim as many lives as bullets. Admiral Gunichi Mikawa's approval of this convoy, despite known American reconnaissance, underscores their bold calculus. The 11th Air Fleet's fighters at Rabaul stand ready, their anti-aircraft tactics honed to perfection. As the sun climbs higher, the convoy presses on, oblivious to the storm brewing. What if one lookout, peering through binoculars, caught a fleeting glimpse of something unnatural on the horizon? But no confidence blinds them, setting the stage for a twist that will redefine aerial terror in the Pacific. Japanese naval officers perceive aerial warfare through a lens sharpened by tradition and hard-won experience, treating it less as a realm of unpredictable skies and more as a disciplined clash between their vigilant ships and the predictable patterns of horizontal bombers or lumbering torpedo planes. To them, the equation is straightforward. Concentrated barrages of anti-aircraft fire, coupled with razor-sharp evasive maneuvers, can shatter most airborne incursions before they draw blood. This doctrine, forged in the fires of early Pacific victories, dismisses the chaos of low-level threats as mere folly, unworthy of serious contemplation. Yet, beneath this tactical certainty lies a deeper cultural reverence for hierarchy and precision, the Banzai spirit translated to the waves, where every gunner knows his role in the grand imperial symphony. Captain Tameichi Hara, a veteran of these treacherous routes aboard the destroyer Shirayuki, embodies this unyielding resolve. Having shepherded convoys through the Bismarck Sea's unpredictable swells multiple times, he drills his crew with the fervor of a sensei, recounting past Allied fumbles. The high-altitude B-17 seconds, whose bombs plummeted like misguided rain, rarely kissing steel, the torpedo planes forced into long, exposed glides that invited a hail of death from maneuvering escorts, and the medium-altitude drops that gifted precious seconds for zigzagging salvation. Hara's men, faces etched with the salt of endless patrols, practice these dances nightly, their laughter echoing as they mock the clumsy Yankees, whose technology, they believe, cannot pierce Japanese adaptability. Commander Yasumi Doi on the destroyer Tokitsukaze takes preparation to obsessive heights, relentlessly training his gun crews on the 25mm cannons that bristle from every deck. He barks orders in the dim pre-dawn light. Lead the target, hold steady amid the storm. His drills simulate the roar of approaching engines, teaching gunners to anticipate trajectories, to weave a web of tracers that anticipates the enemy's path. These sessions, infused with the stoic endurance of Bushido, build not just skill but unbreakable morale, men who view their posts as sacred altars of defense, sharing sake-fueled tales of downed foes under Rabal's stars. Commander Yasumi Doi on the destroyer Tokitsukaze takes preparation to obsessive heights, relentlessly training his gun crews on the 25mm cannons that bristle from every deck. He barks orders in the dim pre-dawn light. Lead the target, hold steady amid the storm. His drills simulate the roar of approaching engines, teaching gunners to anticipate trajectories, to weave a web of tracers that anticipates the enemy's path. These sessions, infused with the stoic endurance of Bushido, build not just skill but unbreakable morale, men who view their posts as sacred altars of defense, sharing sake-fueled tales of downed foes under Rabal's stars. Yet, imagine the subtle cracks, whispered doubts among the ranks about stretched resources, the Empire's vast reach straining thin. What if Hara, scanning the horizon, sensed an unnatural hush in the wind? These tactics, refined over 2 years of unchallenged sails, blind them to the radical shift, approaching an assault that mocks their umbrella, turning guardians into prey in a blitz of unforeseen fury. Beyond the soldiers' boots, pounding the decks, the transport ships groan under cargoes vital to the Empire's fraying grip on New Guinea crates of ammunition stacked like grim sentinels, medical kits to staunch jungle fevers, rations to fend off starvation, and machinery to claw back ground from Allied advances. The behemoth Kyokusei Maru, displacing over 6,000 tons, swallows an entire regiment of the 51st Division. Her holds a labyrinth of hammocks and hopes, where infantrymen from Honshu's rice fields huddle, clutching rifles and family amulets. These men, delayed weeks at Rabal by monsoons that lash the anchorage, finally embark under clear skies, briefed in hushed tones. The voyage is short, our Navy's supreme American birds circle, but our steel will shield you. Their morale, a mix of imperial fervor and homesick murmurs, swells with tales of past safe passages. Yet shadows of doubt flicker in eyes haunted by letters from comrades lost to malaria's grip. Strategically, this lifeline to Leh is no mere resupply. It's the artery pumping life into General Hatazo Adachi's beleaguered forces, where supply lines stretch thin across malarial swamps and guerrilla ambushes. Without these reinforcements, the 51st Division's fresh blood could tip the scales against MacArthur's creeping counteroffensive, securing Rabal's flank and staving off isolation. The convoy's formation is a masterpiece of drilled precision, destroyers weaving an outer screen against hinting shadows or aerial phantoms, transports clustered like wary herd animals, all honed by 2 years of Pacific crucible. Japanese lookouts, perched like eagles, scan the horizon with practiced vigilance, their bonsai cries ready for any foe. Then the first ripple shatters the calm. A sharp-eyed sentinel aboard a Sashio spots specks blooming from the southern haze, multiple contacts at medium altitude, resolving into what Lieutenant Commander Aikido reports as a familiar foe. B-17 seconds and B-25 seconds, droning at 7,000 feet, their bomb bays likely heavy with the usual futile payload. Gun crews snap to life, swiveling barrels skyward, calculators whirring with deflection angles and elevation crunches, priming the ritual curtain of fire that has saved sister convoys. Hearts pound with adrenaline-fueled resolve, captains barking orders as tracers arc in rehearsal bursts, the air thick with cordite anticipation. But here's the insidious twist they can't see. These high flyers are bait, a feint to hoist the Japanese defenses on their own petard. While every eye strains upward, every muzzle tilts to the heavens, the true reapers skim the wave crests unseen, their modified snouts hungry for blood. Imagine the false security swelling in Kimura's chest, the brief cheer among troops peering from portholes only for the ocean's whisper to herald doom, as the real assault brews in the spray of prop wash, turning complacency to catastrophe in a heartbeat of tactical genius. From the frustration of bombs plummeting harmlessly into the churning Pacific, a tactical revolution was born, one that would etch American ingenuity into the annals of warfare. High-altitude strikes against weaving ships proved a cruel joke. Torpedoes demanded naval expertise the Army Air Forces lacked in the Southwest Pacific's sweltering theaters. Enter Major Paul Irvin Gunn, Pappy to his comrades, a grizzled ex-Navy pilot whose salt-crusted wisdom clashed with rigid doctrine. Trading ocean swells for cockpit fury, Gunn saw the B-25 Mitchell's potential not as a skybound bomb truck, but as a predator reborn. At Eagle Farm Airfield near Brisbane, Australia, amid the clang of wrenches and the drone of test flights, he partnered with North American Aviation's field rep Jack Fox, two visionaries defying bureaucracy in a hangar reeking of aviation fuel and desperation. Their gamble: gut the bombardier's glass dome perch, forging space for 50 caliber machine guns in the nose. Starting with 4 barrels, they escalated to 8, each a snarling maw demanding structural wizardry. The B-25's frame, never meant for such ferocity, required beefed-up reinforcements, welded struts bracing the nose against recoil's savage kiss, bulkheads thickened to tame vibration that could shear wings mid-dive. Ammunition bunkers sprouted like tumors, carefully balanced to avoid turning the aircraft into a wallowing duck. Trial runs ended in near disasters, props kissing waves as weight shifts pitched pilots into panic. Through sweat-soaked nights and crash-landed prototypes, guns mechanics, Australian welders, and Yankee tinkerers solved riddles with slide rules and sheer grit, their banter masking the terror of untested lethality. Their gamble: gut the bombardier's glass dome perch, forging space for 50 caliber machine guns in the nose. Starting with 4 barrels, they escalated to 8, each a snarling maw demanding structural wizardry. The B-25's frame, never meant for such ferocity, required beefed-up reinforcements, welded struts bracing the nose against recoil's savage kiss, bulkheads thickened to tame vibration that could shear wings mid-dive. Ammunition bunkers sprouted like tumors, carefully balanced to avoid turning the aircraft into a wallowing duck. Trial runs ended in near disasters, props kissing waves as weight shifts pitched pilots into panic. Through sweat-soaked nights and crash-landed prototypes, guns mechanics, Australian welders, and Yankee tinkerers solved riddles with slide rules and sheer grit, their banter masking the terror of untested lethality. Their gamble: gut the bombardier's glass dome perch, forging space for 50 caliber machine guns in the nose. Starting with 4 barrels, they escalated to 8, each a snarling maw demanding structural wizardry. The B-25's frame, never meant for such ferocity, required beefed-up reinforcements, welded struts bracing the nose against recoil's savage kiss, bulkheads thickened to tame vibration that could shear wings mid-dive. Ammunition bunkers sprouted like tumors, carefully balanced to avoid turning the aircraft into a wallowing duck. Trial runs ended in near disasters, props kissing waves as weight shifts pitched pilots into panic. Through sweat-soaked nights and crash-landed prototypes, guns mechanics, Australian welders, and Yankee tinkerers solved riddles with slide rules and sheer grit, their banter masking the terror of untested lethality. As the first strafer growled to life, pilots whispered of its devilish promise, unaware it would soon paint the Bismarck Sea red. What drove a Navy man to Army heresy? Gunn's epiphany, that firepower at mast height could outfox evasive escorts, sparked a curiosity that blinded foes to the fangs forming in the outback, setting the stage for a dawn where tradition met its mechanical reaper. The strafer's fangs weren't mere metal. They spat the M8 armor-piercing incendiary round, a 619-grain beast hurtling at 2,910 feet per second, designed to punch through destroyer decks like hot knives through silk before igniting infernos within. Each 50-caliber gun belched 850 rounds per minute, but 8 in symphony unleashed 6,800, a relentless storm capable of sawing superstructures asunder, shredding gun crews mid-movement, and leaving exposed sailors as crimson confetti before reflexes could fire. Psychologically, it was apocalypse incarnate. Survivors would recount the primal dread of a B-25's nose erupting in muzzle flares, a mechanical dragon's breath heralding hundreds of tracers, stitching death, turning ironclad confidence to quivering terror, as if the gods of war had favored the enemy with lightning wands. This firepower danced in deadly tandem with skip bombing, a technique midwifed by Major William Benn of the 43rd Bombardment Group. Frustrated with B-17 Seconds high-altitude duds, Benn pioneered the art on the skeletal wreck of SS Pruth, reefed near Port Moresby, a ghostly training ground where pilots honed the suicidal ballet. From 200 to 250 feet, bombs skipped like vengeful stones across wave troughs, ricocheting into hulls or detonating close enough to rupture seams with tidal fury. It demanded iron nerves, straight and level plunges at low altitude, pilots exposed as piñatas to flak, timing releases with stopwatch precision amid prop wash and salt spray. Practice runs echoed with cheers and curses, crews judging speeds, distances, fuses until accuracy eclipsed high-altitude roulette, bombs kissing waterlines with surgical spite. General George Kinney, 5th Air Force commander, spied the unholy marriage, gun strafers suppressing defenses while skip bombers struck the heart. He christened them commerce destroyers, a nod to economic warfare's grim math: sink the supply ships, starve the empire. By March 1943, the 3rd Attack Group, with the 90th Bombardment Squadron under Major Edward Larner, fully embraced the strafer creed. Larner's tactics manual etched the profile: approach at 1,000 to 1,500 feet, then dive to wave top 2 miles out, throttle to max as the pilot aligns the crosshairs. At 1,500 yards, unleash the 8-gun torrent, hosing targets with incendiary wrath while closing for the skip bomb, drop a 1 to 2 punch blending gunship savagery with bombing finesse. Envision the cockpit frenzy: pilots gripping sticks, slick with sweat, gunners tallying ammo, the air electric with the promise of upending naval dogma. This fusion, born from Australian dust and Yankee audacity, whispered of twists yet unseen how a bomber's nose could blind an armada, curiosity peaking as the Bismarck's horizon loomed, pregnant with the convoy's oblivious doom. The first whispers of catastrophe arrive with the B-17 Seconds at 7,000 feet, their bomb bays yawning open in familiar menace, drawing every Japanese gaze skyward like moths to a sacrificial flame. This is precisely the diversion American planners craved: a masterful feint, where high-altitude thunderheads of bombs pull the convoy's anti-aircraft teeth. Destroyers thundering their 25mm and 5-inch barrages in a skyward symphony of tracers that weave deadly lace around the distant specks. Captains bellow orders, gun crews sweat and strain, barrels glowing hot as they calculate falls and deflections. convinced they've trapped the Yankees in the same old trap. Admiral Kimura nods approval from his bridge, the air electric with the Empire's defiant roar, oblivious to the true reapers skimming the southern swells. From the southwest, at wave-top heights so low their propellers churn foam wakes like predatory sharks, 13 Royal Australian Air Force Beaufighters and 12 B-25 Mitchell Strafers surge unseen, engines muffled by the ocean's hush. These Australian pilots, hardened by desert sands and homefront fury, fly with a bushranger's grit, their bows twin engines growling vengeance for Darwin's raids. Major Edward Larner, at the spearhead in his Mitchell Ruthless nose, painted with a snarling maw that belies its 8-gun abyss locks, eyes on Shirayuki's silhouette, hurtling at 280 miles per hour. Through his canopy, he glimpses Japanese sailors frozen on deck, fingers pointing in slack-jawed horror at this apparition, not the familiar bomber drone, but a beast with black-muzzled orifices protruding like accusing talons, hurtling at altitudes where faces sharpen into individual terror. The Japanese have glimpsed B-25 seconds before, but never this mutation, never a craft daring mast height, where pilots could count the enemy's breaths. Larner's heart hammers as he closes the gap. The convoy's upward fixation, a gift from Allied cunning, every destroyer committed to the false gods above. Socially, these moments etch raw humanity. Aussie navigators cracking grim jokes over radio to steady nerves. American gunners priming belts with hands that tremble not from fear, but anticipation of history's pivot. Culturally, it's David versus Goliath reborn. Underdogs from Brisbane's backlots outfoxing samurai precision with raw, adaptive fire. As Shirayuki looms larger, Larner savors the twist they can't fathom the fangs about to bear. What shock ripples through Hara's bridge as the first low roar pierces their trance? The diversion holds, curiosity coils like a spring, the sea about to erupt in a frenzy that shatters imperial illusions forever. Larner holds his breath until 1,200 yards, then squeezes the trigger, a thunderous awakening as 8 streams of .50 caliber fury lash out, tracers etching solid crimson lines from Ruthless's nose to Shirayuki's vitals. The destroyer shudders under the onslaught, hundreds of armor-piercing incendiaries slamming at 2,910 feet per second, shattering bridge windows in crystalline death, shredding officers mid-command as glass and steel confetti claims limbs and lives. Gun shields crumple like foil, their thin armor no match for rounds that ignite sparks and screams, silencing anti-aircraft nests in seconds as crews dissolve into ragged horror. Ensign Takashi Mieta, one of the bridge's few souls to cling to life amid the carnage, would later whisper of it as a colossal saw of metal devouring flesh his captain felled in a blink, bulkheads glowing red-hot as bullets chewed through, the air thick with acrid smoke and the wet choke of the dying. For 8 heart-pounding seconds, Larner pours over 900 rounds, then releases 2 500-pounders with 5-second delay fuses. They skip like vengeful flat stones, punching below Shirayuki's waterline before erupting in twin cataclysms that snap her spine, flooding engine rooms in a geyser of steam and screams. As he hauls up, his dorsal gunner rakes the deck with turret fire, leaving the destroyer listing portside, crew abandoning posts to battle inexorable tides. Behind him, the Wolfpack strikes, 11 more B-25 seconds fan out, pilots marveling at the convoy's paralysis. Japanese captains frozen by this biblical plague from the waves. Lieutenant John Hennebree in his Hag targets Kyokusei Maru, walking his 8-gun barrage bow to stern tracers, pulverizing the bridge into a slaughterhouse, demolishing cargo gear, muting her guns before skip bombs rip her guts. The transport's helm jams lifeless, captain and crew eviscerated in sprays of blood and circuitry, their evasive twitch doomed. Beaufighters amplify the Reaper's song, Flight Sergeant Fred Cassidy of Number Reed. 30 Squadron dives his bow to mast height on Teo Maru, 20mm cannons erupting to disintegrate the superstructure, witnessing bridges vaporize, sailors hurled skyward by blasts, lifeboats splintered to driftwood. Cassidy's account paints visceral chaos, explosions blooming like crimson flowers, the sea frothing with debris and despair. This blitz unveils raw terror psychology, Japanese discipline cracking under firepower, that outpaces thought, turning warriors to prey. What if one gunner, glimpsing the nose's maw, fired a desperate burst only to watch it swallowed by the storm? The initial wave's surprise multiplies devastation, curiosity spiking as transports reel, the convoy's ironclad faith fracturing in gunfire's roar. Skip bombs prove a merciless executioner, bouncing with lethal precision to kiss hulls at the waterline, their delayed fuses burrowing deep before unleashing hellish detonations that rend steel like parchment. The transport Nojima absorbs 3 in rapid fury, her sides splitting open as if by a Titan's can opener, flooding cavernous holds crammed with hundreds of 51st Division soldiers in full combat rig rifles slung, packs heavy, no avenue for the frantic scramble as black water surges, swallowing screams that pierce even the din of engines and erupting ammo. Witnesses aboard escorts hear the muffled agony, a chorus of drowning defiance echoing the Empire's unraveling grip, where men drilled for jungle bayonets meet watery graves in gear meant for glory. Commander Yasumi Doi on Toketsukaze stares aghast from his bridge, his meticulously trained gunners eviscerated by 50 caliber Tempest bodies rent asunder, limbs cartwheeling into the foam, the deck slick with gore that mocks his endless drills. He roars commands to pivot, fire low, but survivors cower, transfixed by approaching B-25 seconds, whose noses flicker like demonic eyes. Muzzle flashes, heralding annihilation faster than terror can rally. The Imperial Navy's playbook, silent on wave-skimming gunships, leaves them flailing. No maneuvers counter this hybrid horror of strafing barrages fused with bombing lethality, turning doctrinal pride to primal rout. In a bid for redemption, destroyer Arashio's captain threads his ship between the onslaught and cowering transports, a sacrificial bulwark echoing Bushido's selfless charge, yet it paints him as bullseye. 3 B-25 seconds converge, their 24 guns vomiting 2,000 rounds per minute, mangling superstructure into grotesque sculpture, bridge crew vaporized, fire controls gutted, rudder sees starboard in a death spiral. Unsteered, Arashio rams Nojima in a grinding embrace of sparks and shrieks, flames leaping between conjoined wrecks, crews powerless against the inferno's voracious spread or the twisted metal barring escape. Admiral Kimura, from his flagship's vantage, grapples with the surreal collapse, his armada fraying not by torpedoes or high dives, but point-blank automatons defying all naval scripture, boring in with surgical savagery. Evasive orders ring hollow. B-25 seconds swarm omnipresent, 8-gun salvos, chastising any formation hold, speed and numbers overwhelming the chaos. Culturally, it's apocalypse for samurai seamen, their honor-bound world pierced by Yankee improvisation. Socially, bonds fracture as whispers of doom replace battle cries, the convoy's cohesion dissolving into isolated infernos. What desperation flickers in Kimura's eyes as Oigawa Maru's fatal broadside turn invites doom? The horror mounts, curiosity twisting toward the battle's fevered peak, where 15 minutes seal an empire's sea lanes in blood and flame. The assault crescendos in a 15-minute maelstrom of unrelenting fury, transports floundering as B-25 seconds dictate doom with predatory precision. Lieutenant Donald McCullers' sleepy time gal zeroes in on Oigawa Maru, her captain's blunder swinging broadside in panic, offering a banquet of vulnerability. From 1,500 yards off the beam, McCullers' 8 guns awaken, unleashing armor-piercing incendiaries that burrow through her hull at the waterline, igniting ammunition and fuel caches in chain reaction blasts that eviscerate compartments, secondary explosions blooming like volcanic wrath. His skip bombs seal the verdict, cleaving the behemoth in two. She founders in a vortex of steam and screams. 1,500 troops, many still clutching gear, below decks plunged into the abyss with scant seconds to plead for air, their imperial dreams extinguished in the Bismarck's maw. Even salvation twists to tragedy. Destroyer Asagumo veers to pluck survivors from the oil-slicked waves, but 2 strafers pounce. Guns sweeping decks bare of rescuers in crimson arcs before skip bombs gash her hull, dooming the would-be saviors to join the flotsam. Japanese sailors adrift, gasping for reprieve, witness fresh horror as B-25 seconds rake lifeboats and swimmers with merciless bursts, pilots heeding Kinney's edict to choke New Guinea's reinforcements at berth. turning the sea into a charnel expanse where hope drowns amid the debris. By 10:15 a.m., as the last Mitchell banks south, the convoy lies eviscerated, all 8 transports ablaze or abyss-bound, funeral pyres marking their plunge, 4 destroyers obliterated, including flagship Shirayuki, survivors limping with riddled superstructures and decks heaped in the fallen. The toll etches indelible scars, 6,900 souls embarked, fewer than 1,200 claw to lay, most fished by nocturnal submarines' grim harvest. Captain Tameichi Hara, threading survival's needle, pens post-war reflections of an assault beyond imagination. B-25 seconds as metal-cutting saws, bisecting vessels with orchestrated hellfire that mocked every drill. Psychologically, its shattering warriors, forged in Pearl Harbor's glory, reduced to spectators of their obsolescence, the umbrella of steel pierced by fangs from the waves. Socially, families in distant villages await phantoms, the Empire's logistical spine cracked, whispers of defeat, seeding doubt where Banzai once reigned. Kimura's gaze sweeps the wreckage, a tactical earthquake registering, naval warfare reborn in minutes, curiosity yielding to grim realization that this slaughter presages broader unraveling, the Pacific's tides turning inexorably against the rising Sunday. The Bismarck Sea's carnage reverberates through the Imperial Japanese Navy like a death knell, its psychological shrapnel piercing deeper than the physical toll. Officers who once sneered at American bombers now confront obsolescence. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Combined Fleet Commander, absorbs the report with a pallor that betrays his strategic dread, ordering frantic reviews of convoy protocols and anti-aircraft bulwarks. Privately, he confides to aides the Strafer's enigma no counter to these flying fortresses of forward fire, where 8 50 calibers outgun most escorts with aerial agility. This doctrinal implosion dooms forward bastions. Resupply becomes a suicide lottery. Garrisons in the Solomons and New Guinea withering on vines of starvation. Lay's forces robbed of their lifeline, evacuated in September 43 via jungle odysseys, claiming more lives to fever than foes. Pappy Gunn's bastard child evolves triumphantly. Field hacks morph into factory gospel, late B-25 Jules models boasting up to 18 nose guns. North American aviation canonizing the 8-gun snarl. The 3rd Attack Group's spawn proliferates the 345th Air Apaches, unleash shark-mouthed terrors on New Guinea barges from August 43, while the 38th crafts harbor hunting night raids with radar eyes. Japanese logistics hemorrhage. Daylight sails turn suicidal, forcing nocturnal destroyer dashes or submarine whispers that trickle fractions of needed tonnage, accelerating shortages that gnaw at Empire's edges. By mid-44, merchant marine tonnage craters 60%, strafer skip bombs feasting on steel bellies. Legacy unfurls in post-war shadows. Axis spies gape at the heresy, Luftwaffe, Ju 88 seconds, ape forward cannons, but lack the concentrated bite. Italian SM, 79 seconds, skips on suppression. The Strafer sires, gunship dynasties, birthing Vietnam's AC-47 Spooky and AC-130 Spectre. Their orbiting wrath echoing Bismarck's blitz. Japanese historians, like Professor Masanori Ito, lamented as warfare's watershed, rivaling radar's peer-shattering naval conceit, hastening offensive abandonment as sea lanes choke. Culturally, survivors bear scars. Lieutenant Hiroshi Yamamoto's nightmares of 8 eyes of death, crews paralyzing at engine winds. Tokyo Express runs birthing from desperation, yet bleeding to radar-hunting strafers. Vice Admiral Shigeyoshi Miwa concedes vast Pacific swaths to air range. Australian RAAF No. 18 squadrons roundel flash strafers ravaging Indies coasts with local savvy. Technical apex in B-25J-22's 18-gun arsenal inspires A-10 Warthogs GAU-8 close-range apocalypse. Veterans reunions evoke cordite cockpits, ships unraveling under fire, improvised genius, trumping tradition, dooming Japan's island lifeline. The 8-gun nose, Kimura's final vision, symbolizes adaptive fury. From Eagle Farm's grit to generational tactics, proving innovation's blade severs empires. The Bismarck's ghosts whispering eternal tactical revolution. please press like and subscribe to the channel. Or wait for my latest video.